Slugs, it's Megan here with a top 5 list. Today's video will be my list of the top 5 most haunted places in America. This is just my opinion and I love to hear yours too. So comment down below what you think is the most haunted place in America. In no particular order, let's get on with the list. The Stanley Hotel was built in the early 1900s in Colorado. This hotel is known as one of the most haunted hotels in America. There have been hundreds of sightings and paranormal experiences that have taken place in this hotel. Guests have reported seeing ghostly figures in their rooms at night, merely standing and watching. Children can be heard playing in the halls when there is no children. Lord Don Raven, the previous owner of the land the property was built on, can supposedly be seen standing over beds or looking out the window of room 407. He is also blamed for any jewelry or valuables that have gone missing in the hotel over the years. In 1974, Stephen King and his wife stayed at the hotel for a night. They had the entire hotel to themselves and stayed in the presidential suite in room 217. Stephen King was very nervous to stay in the hotel, so after he had finished his dinner in the dining hall, he went straight to sleep. Stephen King had the worst nightmare of his life that night. He dreamed that a fire hose had chased his son down the hallways and constricted him, taking his life. The next morning, he woke up sweaty and exhausted. He went out to the balcony and smoked a cigarette. By the time he had finished his cigarette, he had already come up with the outline of the novel The Shining in his head. To this day, no matter what time it is, day or night, on channel 42 of your guest room television, The Shining is always playing. Now, this isn't exactly paranormal, but it definitely has something to do with Stephen King's experience. They lost 10% of the hotel from the explosion. They found parts of the hotel the next morning half a mile south from the original explosion, and there was a report of the next morning of a local church seeing a bathtub fly up in the air. In every room, there was a gas leak in room 217, and that night, head chamber made Miss Elizabeth Wilson enter room 217 with a candle and set off an explosion. Wilson survived the explosion. She was shot from room 217 down to the first floor of the dining hall and survived. They took her that night to the nearest hospital in Longmont on a dirt road during a flood to save her life. She was in a coma for 2 days. When she woke up, she went back to work nearly 18 months later in the Stanley Hotel. Ms. Wilson worked for the hotel from 1913 to 1950, when she was 90 years old. Gettysburg is famous for the battle that took place in 1863 and took the lives of close to 50,000 hiding up in their room, even though they left their room dirty the night before. So Ms. Wilson is not what you would call an evil spirit to say. She is more of a good spirit for the hotel and its business. Next on our list is the Haunted Limp Mansion. The Haunted Limp Mansion earned its place in the most haunted since 1980. Located in St. Louis, Missouri, this mansion was erected in the year 1860 by William Limp and his family. This mansion has been beset with sad events and tragedy for a long time. People believe that to be the reason for its haunted. It started in the year of 1904. William Limp had lost his son from suicide. The same event happened with his daughter Elsa in 1920. This was not all. After being forced to sell his brewery business, William Limp Jr. also committed suicide by shooting himself in 1940. Charles Limp, the second son, also took his own life in the basement of the mansion. All the Limp family had committed suicide. The mansion was sold in 1977 and is still said to be haunted to this day. Next on our list is the Old Slave Mansion in the town of Equality, Illinois, was first erected by an extremely rich individual, John Hart Crenshaw, in the year of 1842. He earned a lot of money regularly through the many salt tracts he owned, and though it was not legal to indulge in slavery of any kind in the state of Illinois at this time, it was okay to take them on lease across other states and make. The story goes that Crenshaw had a habit of kidnapping and torturing these workers. He used to imprison them in the narrow rooms of the mansion and put them in chains. He regularly used to torture them and even breed some slaves. When these evil practices were brought to public knowledge, he gave it up and became a farmer. However, people who started visiting the place from the year 1920, when it was thrown open to the general public, reported hearing moans of pain and whispers coming from the lofts. Openings intensified when a reputed ghost hunter, Hickman Whittington, took the trouble out of going into the attic and tried to spend some time. He was discovered dead after a few hours, though he was in perfect health at the time he visited the mansion. After that, though many people have tried to spend some time in the attic, none of them have been successful, as they had to leave the place after being scared out of the Next on our list is the haunted battlefield of Gettysburg. Cemeteries and battlefields have always been the most common areas where paranormal activity has always taken place, and many of them have become haunted over time. The terror, agony, and tragedy that is inevitable and associated with such places may be responsible for not letting the spirits rest in tranquility, making these places most likely haunted sightings of ghosts and wandering apparitions. The Civil War, which took place across many battlefields ranging across the Stones River, left in its wake several grisly memories of death and gruesome killings. Perhaps the most haunted of them all is the battlefield of Gettysburg. It's the battlefield. The town itself has many haunted spots, and many people have experienced pretty unusual events at these places. Since a number of people have reported the sightings of strange-looking apparitions suddenly coming out of nowhere, and some have even had encounters with such ghostly. There are many other battlefields that are supposedly haunted, but the battlefield of Gettysburg was the one that I found the most terrifying. Some of the places like Gettysburg College, the Little Round Top, Devil's Den, and the Farnsworth House in particular have witnessed the haunting of ghosts and other apparitions pretty regularly. And last but not least, the final location on our list is the Alcatraz Prison. Everyone has heard of the prison known as Alcatraz. It is located on Alcatraz Island in the San Francisco Bay, which is 1.5 miles offshore of San Francisco, California. Commonly called the Rock, this small island was initially outfitted with places for a lighthouse and served as a military prison beginning in 1868 and was a federal prison from 1933 until 1963. In 1972, Alcatraz was turned into a national recreation area. In 1986, it became a National Historic Landmark. Today, haunted Alcatraz is managed by National Park Service and is open to tourists that reach the island by a ferry ride. Abandoned prison still stands on the island, as does the lighthouse, military forts, a seabird colony, rock pools, and other natural features. Alcatraz is created to get rebellious prisoners in line by making them participate in a structured and boring regimen until their time was. Prisoners of Alcatraz were allowed 4 things. These basics were food, clothing, shelter, and healthcare. If they wanted anything else, they had to earn it. Known criminals such as Al Capone, Arthur Doc Barker, Alvin Karpis, and George Gun Machine Kelly were all at Alcatraz. Officers of this caliber in other prisons usually found ways to get the guards to afford them special privileges. This, however, didn't happen in Alcatraz. The prisoners were treated the same way. One of Alcatraz's famous punishments was being confined to the strip cell. It was located on the lower part of the deep. This dark steel cell required inmates to strip naked while they were in there. They were only allowed bread and water once a day with a meal once. The prison closed in 1963 due to the high cost of remodeling to get it up to standard. As portions of the prison were opened to tourists later, it is these tourists that carry the tales of various sightings of specters and sensations that are ghostly. However, there have been Park Services employees that have also noticed some ghostly activity. As 19 days, these cells contained only a sink, toilet, and a light bulb, with a mattress only given. As resting on an island, it was kept quite isolated from the public. This may have been part of the reason that there were many tales of cruelty and torture of the prisoners held. On the other hand, it may be these very mistreated prisoners that are responsible for the many hauntings reported over the years at Alcatraz. An area that claims quite a bit of strange animation is a utility corridor that was the scene of the inmates Joe Kretzer, Marvin Hubbard, and Bernard Coy being brought down by bullets while trying. A nighttime security guard working in Alcatraz in 1976 reported unexplained clanging noises emanating from inside this corridor. He opened the door twice to check that corridor, but the sounds would stop and he saw nothing. As soon as he closed the door, this thing was trying to kill him. Finally, he went silent. The next morning, he was found dead in 14D, with a terrified expression frozen on his face. There are so many more sightings and stories from Alcatraz that I could go on for hours. And that concludes my list of the top 5 most haunted places in America. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment down below what topic you want us to do next. Goodbye, slugs.